When you ask around about the disappearance of Craig Frear, the locals of Scotia, New York will all tell you the same thing. He just vanished.
The day my son went missing is etched in my brain. The weather, everything about that day.
June 27th, 2004, Scotia, New York. A 17-year-old high school student on summer vacation gets in his car and travels to his girlfriend's apartment complex. After hanging out for a bit, he leaves her residence. He is last seen entering a nearby stretch of woods. From there, it's as if he simply vanished into thin air. This is the unsolved mystery of 17-year-old Craig Frear. Welcome to The Cellar. Hey everyone, welcome back to The Cellar. Before we dive into this story, I just wanted to say a few things. First off, some of you have been asking me to find and cover some lesser known stories. I could say today's story definitely hits the mark there. Second, this story is very close to home for me. I grew up in upstate New York, the capital region to be a bit more specific, and this particular story takes place in Scotia, New York, an area I spent a lot of time growing up. In particular, I played in a few bands back in the day, playing bass, guitar, vocals. Yes, that is super young me with the ridiculous haircut. I had many close friends in the Scotia area, so this is a story I always told myself I would cover one day. Now, if you enjoy what I do here on the channel, then please hit that like button, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel, and also consider joining the channel as a member. It helps a lot, and it's only $2.99 a month. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and dive into today's story. First things first, let's give a little backstory and context. So, Schenectady, New York is a city located about 15 miles or 24 kilometers northwest of the state capital of Albany, New York. If you take a short drive over the Western Gateway Bridge, which travels over the Mohawk River, you will soon find yourself entering the town of Glenville, New York. Now, Scotia, New York is a part of the town of Glenville. It's a quaint village within Schenectady County and has around 7,200 total residents. One such resident of Scotia was 17-year-old Craig Frear. Craig Frear was a popular and athletic 17-year-old who had just finished his junior year at Scotia Glenville High School. Craig was a standout soccer player in high school. He had just been named the varsity captain in preparation for his upcoming senior season, and there were even colleges interested in recruiting him after high school. Craig was 5'11" and weighed around 190 pounds. He had red hair, dimples, and an overall athletic build. From all reports, Craig had plenty of friends. It's actually said that he had friends from various different cliques. It was June 27th, 2004, and Craig's parents, Bill and Veronica Frear, were both busy preparing to throw a barbecue. It was a nice, warm Sunday, and their daughter's birthday was upcoming, and they wanted to celebrate it. Veronica would speak with Craig that morning before he left the house on his way to work. Now, Craig worked at a local grocery store chain called Price Chopper. Price Chopper Supermarkets is an American supermarket chain owned by Northeast Grocery. Its headquarters is located in Schenectady, New York, not far from where I actually used to live. Price Chopper operates a total of 128 stores within 6 states: upstate New York, Vermont, Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, and Pennsylvania. Now, I've seen some differing reports, but it appears Craig had worked at his local Price Chopper in the dairy department for at least a little bit of time. After Craig left for work that morning, his mom, Veronica, continued getting ready for the barbecue. After making a grocery list of items they would need, she decided to take a drive to Price Chopper to do her shopping. She figured this would give her an opportunity to pop in and see how Craig was doing. As Veronica arrived at the grocery store, she grabbed a cart and began walking around. She would eventually make her way over to the dairy department, but Craig was seemingly nowhere to be found. She thought this was odd and finished up her shopping before heading home. At home, Veronica began calling around to Craig's friends before she finally located him. She questioned Craig on why he wasn't at work, and he explained that he was running late but was on his way in right now. After hanging up, Veronica began to give it all a bit more thought, and she felt off about her conversation with her son. She was suspicious, so she asked Craig's father, Bill, to stop by the Price Chopper and check in on him. Bill agreed and soon arrived at Price Chopper, but when he too arrived at the dairy department, he found Craig was nowhere to be found. Bill then spoke to an employee who was working that day. What he was told was very unexpected. It turned out Craig had not come to work in well over a month's time. In fact, it had been so long that Craig had been completely removed from the schedule. Bill soon made his way home and shared the news with his wife. Both of Craig's parents were pretty angry and puzzled over what was going on. Veronica soon got on the phone, placing calls to all of Craig's friends. She would eventually get Craig on the phone around 1:30 p.m. that afternoon. She questioned Craig on why he hadn't been to work in over a month. Craig instantly knew his parents were both very irritated, and he tried to tell them that he would talk to them more in person about the ordeal. He told his mom he would be home in around 10 minutes or so, but Craig's father wasn't having it. Bill would get in his vehicle and make his way towards the Cambridge Manor apartments where Craig was hanging out with his girlfriend. Bill would locate Craig's car, but he wasn't sure which apartment Craig was in. After waiting by Craig's car for a few moments, Bill got on the phone to his wife and asked her to call Craig's girlfriend and tell him to get his butt outside. When Veronica called, she was told that Craig had already left a handful of minutes ago. According to Craig's girlfriend, he was supposed to be heading home. Based on this information, it appears that Craig had walked out of her apartment only to see that his father was waiting nearby his car. It appears Craig then changed directions and began walking away from the apartment in the direction of home. From there, it's believed that Craig walked towards the nearby train tracks, which head in the direction of Craig's house. This would be one of the easiest ways for him to walk home while avoiding the main road and his angry father. After following the tracks for a little ways, Craig could then cut through a section of woods and end up in his family's backyard. The entire walk should have taken Craig around a half an hour tops. But as a half an hour, then an hour, then 2 passed by, Craig didn't show up. By that evening, Craig's family assumed he was laying low, knowing that his parents were pretty upset with him. But as darkness fell, Craig's parents became more concerned about his well-being. Now, Craig had run away once in the past, but it only lasted a day or so. Also, this time around, Craig didn't have his car, his wallet, or his cell phone. In a lot of ways, he wasn't prepared to just leave. Veronica would call around to Craig's friends, but no one had seen him. Craig's parents tried to give him some time to show up at home, but they eventually went and contacted the police department. He was reported missing on Tuesday, June 29, 2004. The Scotia Police Department took on the case, and from the beginning, it didn't seem like they were taking it overly serious. They presumed that Craig was a young man, and it was the summer, so he must have been out just having a good time. Days would continue to pass by before the police finally filed the missing persons report on Friday, July 2nd. At this point, Craig had been missing for close to a week. When the investigation first began, locals living in the area were well aware of the story, but the overall news coverage was all but non-existent. This was done somewhat on purpose, as police were concerned that if Craig had run away, news coverage would only scare him from returning. In the end, they waited until the middle of August 15th to be exact, before informing the local news and really spreading the word. The police would start things off by speaking with family and friends. They soon put together searches of the woods and train tracks between Craig's friend's apartment and Craig's home. After multiple searches, no sign of Craig turned up. The family posted flyers and continued to try and get the word out there, hoping their son would one day come home to them. Investigators continued diving into Craig's life. As they talked with more friends, they discovered that something had been off with Craig lately. It seemed like some friends thought Craig was depressed, while others thought the polar opposite. Police also found that Craig not only lied to his family about his job, but he had also been keeping it a secret from his friends. From what's been reported, Craig had also been a lot less social as of late, which leads to the question, what was going on in the life of Craig Frear? Soon, days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months. The case seemed to be at a standstill. Tips would come in, but each one would lead the police in a new dead end. 4 months after it all began, the Frear family retained a private investigator. The family felt that the Scotia Police Department wasn't doing enough to find their son, and they wanted to make sure no stone went unturned. The private investigator would take the family's computer and have it analyzed by professionals. In the end, the results didn't reveal much. As more time continued to go by, the case grew cold. Years would pass by with no answers as to what happened. In 2006, the New York State Police would take over the case. This provided some fresh eyes and resources into the investigation. As the state police took over, a new tip came in about Craig. 3 middle school boys reported seeing Craig on the railroad tracks the day he vanished. Police would speak with these young men, but the details led them to question the validity of this claim. The middle school boys described Craig as wearing a long-sleeve shirt and having a book bag on. This goes against what Craig was actually wearing the day he went missing: a short-sleeve white t-shirt and jeans. Also, Craig's book bag was not taken with him. It was left behind. The tip about the middle school kids, by all accounts, seems like it may be accurate, but these kids most likely saw Craig on another day. Either way, police do not believe this sighting had anything to do with the day he disappeared. Diving into the facts around Craig's life a little bit more, it was found out that Craig had been potentially dabbling a bit in smoking pot. See, Craig had a lot of friends. Some were a part of his soccer team, and some were labeled as troublemakers. It appears Craig may have been hanging out with these troublemakers on a more frequent basis leading up to his disappearance. Years after Craig went missing, police would find out that one of these friends was keeping a secret. See, leading up to Craig's disappearance, he had lost his wallet and driver's license. He would replace the wallet, but not the driver's license. It would soon come to light that his wallet had actually been found. See, the parents of one of Craig's friends would notify police that they found Craig's wallet hidden in their son's bedroom. When they first found the wallet, they were afraid to go to the police as their son had been in trouble with the law before. Their son also stated that he was afraid to say anything about it because of his past run-ins with the law. Police would bring the young man in for questioning, and it's not clear how the police came to this determination, but from all reports, they deemed that he had no involvement in Craig's disappearance. Now, it's also been reported that Craig was not only smoking, but he may have been selling a bit on the side. People speculated whether or not there was a connection between this and his disappearance. This was also followed up on by the police department, and they were unable to find any connection. Now, with no new leads and the case growing colder by the day, the focus soon shifted to finding out why Craig had stopped going to Price Chopper. Did putting these pieces together hold the answers to this case? Well, Craig's mom would soon recall a weird moment with her son. There had been a day where Craig had come home from work. When he did, he showed off to his mom that an older woman had given him her number. He seemed proud of this moment, but Craig's mom said she saw it as a little odd because the handwriting on the paper seemed manly in nature. Now, did this really mean anything, or was she just reading into it a little too much? Some questioned whether Craig may have been hiding things about his sexuality. Did Craig meet someone at work? Did he stop showing up to work in order to avoid that certain someone? The police would conduct countless interviews with coworkers and drivers at the Price Chopper, but in the end, they found no direct connection with Craig's disappearance. Seemingly another dead end. Years would go by before another bombshell piece of information was dropped in this case. Nick, a coworker of Craig's, would speak about how he was certain he saw Craig in the passenger seat of a vehicle traveling north on Route 50 in Glenville, north of Scotia. This was around 2 days after Craig had disappeared. When he first saw Craig, he didn't think anything of it until he found out he was missing. According to Nick, the vehicle stopped at a traffic light at Sheffield Road and proceeded to turn left. This sighting was reported as being sometime between June 27th and July 2nd, 2004. Now, many questioned why this information took so long to come out. Even investigators said they doubted this piece of information as it wasn't reported to them back in 2004. but Nick apparently countered by saying he did report this information to the police. See, the price chopper Nick worked at was in Glenville, so the Glenville police were the ones to take the report, but it was the Scotia Police Department who were running the investigation. So there is a chance that this information wasn't properly passed along to the Scotia Police Department. This sighting has been talked about and debated over for years. Nick has stuck to his story, while investigators question the validity of it all, as according to them, they were not informed back in 2004. If this information is in fact true, then Craig may have left on his own accord and may still be out there somewhere. His family certainly hopes that is the case. In the end, we simply do not know what happened to Craig. Now, before I touch on some theories, I want to make it very clear. Some of these ideas are simply speculative in nature. I did a lot of research and dove into some sites where internet sleuths have been discussing this case for a long time. Also, having lived near Scotia, I've heard things myself over the years. So now let's dive into some thoughts. First, could Craig have been hit by a train? Well, police did a thorough search of the area and the train tracks. Also, Amtrak never reported any possible evidence that someone may have been hit by a train in that area, so I think the idea that Craig was hit by a train is out the window. Now, one piece of info I want to touch on is Craig's parents. There have been reports that Craig and his father had a very strained relationship. From what's been discussed, Craig's parents were pretty upset with him about him losing his job. His father even drove over to the girlfriend's apartment that day to confront him. Did Craig see his father and decide he didn't want to deal with any of it? Did this cause Craig to run away or take his own life? It's certainly a possibility. It's said that Craig's parents eventually separated after he disappeared, and his father would eventually pass away, never knowing what happened to his son. Now, I am not one to point fingers at a grieving family, but it does sound like Craig and his parents may have been at odds with one another. I could certainly see him wanting to get away from a tough home life. Truth is, the only people who know for certain how his home life was is Craig himself and his parents and siblings. Now, could Craig have been seeing someone secretly? Was there a male truck driver at Price Chopper that he was seeing? Was Craig wrestling with his sexuality? Was he fearful of coming out about this to his parents? Could this have resulted in him running away with someone and starting a new life? I guess it's all possible, but I do want to point out that Craig's social security number has never been used in all the years since he went missing. He never used it to open a bank account or apply for a job of any kind. So could he have started a new life? I mean, others have done it, so I could see it as a possibility for sure, but in no way would it be an easy thing for a 17-year-old to accomplish. Another idea is Craig met foul play while walking home. Maybe Craig did walk towards the train tracks, and maybe he did make his way towards home and attempted to cut through the woods leading to his house. I think it's a little hard to imagine that someone would try to harm him or kidnap him in the middle of the afternoon, but it could be possible. I do want to point out that no physical evidence of Craig was ever found in all of the searches done of the area. This doesn't mean nothing happened, but if something did, then we may never know the truth. Staying on this same thought process, I want to touch on the last place Craig was known to have been for sure, his girlfriend's. Now, I've seen this reported in many ways. It was his friend's apartment, it was his girlfriend's apartment, and it was his ex-girlfriend's apartment. The truth is simply not known for certain, but some have speculated that she may know more than she has ever let on. Did she break up with Craig? Did she have another man in her life that she had harm Craig? It's pure speculation, but I've seen it discussed enough times on different forums that I think it needs to at least be entertained. I also saw some people who reported that this friend of Craig's stopped cooperating with the police and that she may have painted her apartment shortly after he disappeared. Once again, this is simply speculation. There's just nothing out there to prove that there's any truth whatsoever to those claims. With all that said, Craig Frear has now been missing for almost 21 years. After all this time, it feels like answers are still so far from being found. If you or anyone you know has any information about this case, then please be sure to contact the New York State Police at 518-630-1700. You never know if some small piece of information that you have is enough to fill in the spaces in this long-standing puzzle. Now I want to take a moment to ask all of you, what do you think happened to Craig Frear? I would love to hear what you all have to say, so please be sure to like the video and leave a comment down below. I try my best to respond to every single person who leaves one. With that said, I want to take a quick moment to send my deepest condolences to all of Craig Frear's family and friends. I truly hope they find answers one day. A big thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content I make here on the channel, then please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, you can check the description box below and find the link to my merch store and the link to the membership tier for the channel. For only $2.99 a month, you can help support my channel further, and you get some cool perks to go with it. One of those perks is having your name listed here in the end of each of my videos. So thank you to all my Cellar Dweller members. Also, if you'd like to submit a real-life scary story of any kind, please do so using the email linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to help support the channel is greatly appreciated. And until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.